Hey everyone, Mr. here. This is guide for round 3 of the Toyota Gazoo Racing GT Cup taking place at Suzuka Circuit with the Toyota Super Formulas. And before I go to the lap guide, if you want to know how to get your hands on a Super Formula, go to Brand Central and you want to go towards the Asia Pacific region. Look for the Super Formula brand. So here we go. And you want to make sure that you get the Toyota version because this is obviously the Toyota Gazoo Racing Cup. So you only want to get the Toyota version of the Super Formula. And it'll cost you quite a bit of credits. It'll cost you about 1 million credits. But anyways, let's go ahead and go on over to the lap guide. When you're starting a new lap, you want to start on the left side of the track so you can have a bit more speed. And it'll get you a faster start to a new lap. So just bring yourself to the left and you'll get a faster start. And stick to the left side of the track. Turn in when you pass the path that is on the left, and your first braking point is when you hit the apex of the very first turn. Lots of braking control needed so you can still have the ability to turn as you're slowing down. And once you hit the apex of the second turn, that is when you can start to fully accelerate. Then the S's are all about throttle control. You want to be nice and easy on the throttle so the car can make the turn. Use a little bit of braking for this right turn and set yourself up to take this left turn flat out. Bring yourself towards the left and you can lift off of the throttle for this first right turn. But for this turn, you want to brake before the curb on the left end, so brake hard for a short moment, quickly ease off of the brakes as you turn in, and get on the throttle as soon as you can. Bring yourself towards the right, brake when the curb on the right ends, and bring yourself towards the inside of the turn, gradually transitioning from the brakes to the throttle. Nice and easy on the throttle so the car doesn't generate too much wheel spin. And from here on out, you can stay on the right side of the track. You can brake pretty late for this upcoming turn. Brake before you pass the 50-meter mark. And you want to use a very quick burst of braking for this first left turn. And then use a little bit more braking before the curb on the right ends. This is a bit more about fine tuning, so bring yourself towards the inside of the turn. And with a curb on the left ends, that is when you want to try to be at full throttle. Now this part, you can take it flat out. Just bring yourself towards the right, and because of this car's high downforce, you can easily take this turn flat out. Bring yourself towards the left, and your final braking point is before you pass the 100-meter board. Brake hard for a short while, ease off of the brakes as you turn in, and do lots of throttle control. And in the case of Suzuka, you can use this tealish area, and that is still considered to be on track limits, so you can definitely take advantage of that and bring yourself towards the right if you have a very good lap time coming in. But that is all for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and take a look at the strategies. But before we do get there, I do want to note that the Super Formulas have the overtake feature, so you want to have a binding for it. So on the home screen, click the Gran Turismo button, go to Options, Controllers, select your input, in which in my case it's the Logitech G923, and over here go ahead and assign the overtake feature to a button, in which in my case I have it assigned to the circle button as it's really easy to reach. And what the overtake feature does, it helps your car accelerate even more, gives your engine more power at the cost of a bit more fuel. And you'll see me use it during the qualifying session because the qualifying session does allow for the overtake feature to be used. Speaking of qualifying, you only have 5 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time, so you'll have 2 to 3 chances to try to get the best qualifying time possible. And during this time, or the outlap that is, you want to get yourself separated from everyone because you want to be qualifying by yourself. You don't want to get too close to anyone because you'll be engaging with a dirty error, which will make your car understeery, which means that you'll lose some time. So pretty much just try to be by yourself on your outlap, and then when you're about to start your first qualifying lap, just set yourself up just right and then go ahead and start your qualifying lap, taking full advantage of the overtake feature. So you'll see me using it right now. You'll see the overtake fuel meter thing on the bottom hand corner of the screen being used. You can even see the back of the car getting lit up. So you'll know that someone is using the overtake feature when the back of the car lights up. And during the qualifying session, when you're doing your first or even second qualifying laps with the overtake feature, you want to be using it as much as possible, because this is pretty much the best way to shave off a lot of time. Just be aware that you might need to slightly adjust your braking points because you are going a bit faster with this overtake feature. And once again, what this does, it helps your car accelerate even faster. So if you're trying to overtake someone, you can use the overtake feature to assist you with that. Or in the case of the qualifying session, it simply helps your car go faster to shave off more time. And I do want to repeat this again, just qualify by yourself, far away from anyone, because you don't want to end up having to deal with anyone during your qualifying session, because that means that you'll most likely end up losing time, especially with the dirty air. And dirty air is going to be a big thing for this race, so that is something that you want to be careful with. So qualifying in the front is going to be especially crucial for a race like this. And we'll go ahead and finish up our qualifying lap, and we still have quite a bit of overtake left. I think I had the settings right, so just be aware that my settings could be wrong, since you do have 90 seconds of the overtake feature to play around with. And I would highly suggest to make sure that your first qualifying lap is your best one, as in your second qualifying lap you may be running a bit short on that overtake. So at the end of the day, you want to qualify alone. You'll have 2 to 3 chances to try to get the best qualifying time possible and take full advantage of the overtake feature. For this race, we are doing 16 laps at Suzuka Circuit with the Toyota Super Formulas, and this is a grid start, so bring the traction control to 1, and shortly after the race starts, bring it back down to 0 or whatever value you normally have it set to. And if you're starting in the front, make full advantage of the overtake feature, because you're probably going to want to get away from the mess that's about to happen on turns 1 and 2. Also, no matter which tire you're starting with, you want to be a little careful on your first lap, especially the first couple of turns, as your tires will definitely be cold, so you're not going to have all the grip that you need. You'll also want to be even more careful, because you'll also have to deal with the dirty air. And what this dirty air does is that whenever you're within 3/4 of a second behind someone, you won't be getting all the downforce that you need to go through some of these turns at your usual speeds, which means that you're going to end up understeering quite a bit. This will also contribute to the front tire wear, and you'll basically be forced to slow down a bit more so you don't end up understeering off of the track. Also, the front tires, no matter what, they also wear out faster than the rear tires, so you want to bring the brake balance towards the rear of the car to try to make sure that those front tires last as long as possible. Speaking of tires, let's go ahead and take a look at the multipliers. So fuel is a ×3, in which for a race that is semi-long like this one, fuel is actually an issue. So you will have to either refuel or do some fuel saving so you don't have to refuel when you pit. Tire wear is a ×6, so tire wear is obviously an issue. All 3 tire compounds are allowed to be used, but only the racing hard tires are the required tires. So you do need to use the racing hard tires for at least 1 lap. Otherwise, you get a 1-minute penalty after the race ends. And I'm going to be a little straightforward here. It's going to be pretty difficult to pull off the no stop on the racing hard tires, partially because you have to fuel save, and then the other thing is that you're noticeably slower on the racing hard tires, especially at the start of the race. With them tires being really cold at the start of the race, it's going to be a pretty big hassle until they are finally warmed up. And let's take a quick look at the strategy. So this one is the one stop where you're not doing any sort of fuel saving. And just a quick note that I recorded these races using the overtake feature only at the start of the race, so I don't have to deal with the AI. But after that, I did not use any of the overtake feature just so I can get a bit more consistent values and results. So if you're doing the one stop, which I highly suggest doing, if you're starting in the very front, start on the racing soft tires, and because of the dirty air issue, the closer that you are towards starting in the middle or in the back, then you're going to want to start on the racing hard tires. So on the racing soft tires, they do last quite a bit of a while, and part of that is because you use up a lot of fuel. So as the fuel quickly goes down, your tires will wear out a bit slower, so you'll be able to make your racing soft tires last around 10 to 12 laps. So assuming that you're starting on the racing soft tires, you're looking at pitting around laps 10 to 12. And in this case, I'm pitting at the end of lap 12, and we're also going to refuel. So this was me doing zero fuel saving, in which going with the zero fuel saving method, it's a bit faster than trying to fuel save, so you don't have to refuel. So we're going to switch on over from the racing soft to the racing hard tires, and we're also going to refuel. So it does take a while for your car to route to the pit stop. Your pit loss is just under 18 seconds, and that is just for the tire change. If you go for the refuel, which you're seeing right now, then you're going to add another 3 seconds around that area. In this case, I ended up losing an additional 2.8 seconds, so my total pit loss ended up being around 20 seconds. And with these longer pit stops, you only want to go for a one stop. Also, before I go on, someone might ask, what about the racing medium tires? Even though you can use them, they provide very little benefit. They don't last much longer than the racing soft tires, and obviously they're not as fast as the racing soft tires, so they're pretty much going to be useless. So don't even think about using the racing medium tires. Only the racing soft and the racing hard tires are the tires that you should be using. But anyways, we switch on over to the racing hard tires, and it's going to feel like a very different car to drive. It's going to feel noticeably understeery and oversteery, especially at the start of your new stint. So you want to be a little more careful about how you drive your car on the racing hard tires. And once again, if you're starting in the very front, start on the racing soft tires, and if you're starting closer towards the middle or the back of the pack, start on the racing hard tires. So in this race, we did a one stop for a tire change and refueling, so we didn't fuel save at all, and we ended up gaining a 26 minutes and 51 seconds. And we'll quickly take a look at the one stop again, but this is where I do a lot of fuel saving to try to make sure that I don't have to refuel. So the main way that you'll be fuel saving is simply by short shifting. So you'll be shifting at around 50 to 75% of the bar on the button on the screen being full. And this method, you're going to be noticeably slower doing all the fuel saving and the short shifting. So you're losing around 0.3 to half a second per lap. And is it really going to be worth doing the fuel saving just so you don't have to refuel? No, not really. The only time where I would say it is possible to fuel save is if you're behind someone and they happen to be on the same tires as you. But other than that, it's going to be better to not have to fuel save. So you're pretty much better just going all out and having to take the refueling whenever you go pit. So we're skipping over towards the end of lap 12, where I go ahead and pit. I'm going to change tires once again from the racing soft to the racing medium tires, in which in this case, because I did some fuel saving, I don't have to refuel. I was actually just a tiny bit short on the fuel, but once again, all I have to do is a short shift a little bit more and I'm pretty much good to go. And as I mentioned earlier, the pit loss only for a tire change is 17 to 18 seconds. And additional fuel, it depends on how much you have to refuel, but normally it's going to be around 2 to 3 seconds. So is it worth losing all of your pace here in the middle of the race just to shave off 2 seconds at the pit stop? I'm going to say no. And there's also the issue where you can potentially run out of fuel, as I'm about to do in this race. Ran out of fuel right at the end of the finish line, and I ended up getting a 26 minutes and 53 seconds, so it was around 2 seconds slower than the one stop with the refueling. But overall, just going all out and having to refuel in the one stop is going to be a better way to go, so don't feel safe for this race. Finally, we'll take a look at the zero stop. So this is where you do all 16 laps on the racing hard tires. So this one is going to be pretty difficult to do, partially because you have the cold tires at the start, so the car is going to be very difficult to handle, even more so if you're under someone's dirty air. So your car's already going to be pretty understeery to begin with, and your pace is going to all around be pretty slow. And you also have to feel safe so you don't run out of fuel. So your pace is going to be very slow. So you're losing around 2 to 3 seconds per lap. And yes, even though the people doing the one stop have to eventually lose 18 to 20 seconds doing the tire change and the refueling, it's still going to be faster than doing a zero stop on the racing hard tires. You're pretty much going to be at a disadvantage all race long. And yes, the racing hard tires can last the entire race. The tower isn't actually too bad on the racing hard tires, but still, you're going a heck of a lot slower. So if anyone is behind you, they're pretty much going to have to try to pass you, and if they find out that you're trying to zero stop the race, they're probably going to try to get really aggressive so they can get around you. But either way, zero stop is going to be a little too slow for it to be viable, so you're better off going with the one stop. And we'll skip on over towards the end of the race. So we did eventually creep on over to the 140s, and that is because we've used up quite a bit of fuel, and it's going to be a little close because we have been fuel saving. We have tried to push at some points in the race, so we should be at around 0% of fuel just as we are about to cross the start finish line. But still, you're pretty much at a disadvantage the entire race, so I am not going to suggest going with the zero stop. And without the penalty being counted, we ended up getting a 27 minutes and 2 seconds, so it's noticeably slower than the one stop. So one stop is definitely the way to go without having to do any sort of fuel saving. And I want to once again touch on the overtake feature. So this lets your car go a lot faster. It gives your engine more power so you accelerate faster and reach your top speed faster. And you can use it in the qualifying session, which is what you're actually seeing right now. Use it as much as you can during your qualifying laps, but in the race you want to be a little more careful about how you're using it because you only have a finite amount. You have 90 seconds worth of it to play around with, and once those 90 seconds worth are used up, that is it. You're out of it and you can't get any more of it. So for example, let's say that the car in front of you, they messed up a turn, they got a really bad exit, and you're getting a really good run on them. That is when you use the overtake feature to go even faster and easily overtake them. And that is just one example of when you can use the overtake feature. There's going to be different situations where you might think it's a wise choice to use it, and if you have it, definitely use it. But just once again, remember that you only have a finite amount of it, so you don't want to be too greedy with the overtake feature and then end up running out of it when you need it the most. And one thing's for sure, save a bit of that overtake feature for the last lap or two, because that is when a lot of people will be using the overtake feature. And finally, let's take a look at places to overtake in the penalty serving zones. The main straight is a good place to try to get the overtake done, especially because it's going to be really difficult to try to get an overtake done after that because of the dirty air and all these twisty turns up ahead. So pretty much from here on out for a good while, it's going to be really difficult to get past anyone because of the dirty air and because these turns make it really difficult to get any sort of passing done. So you're pretty much going to be stuck behind someone for a while until after you pass Dagger 2, which is this turn. If a car gets a really bad exit, you can try to take advantage of them here, leading up to the hairpin. And after this hairpin, this is where it gets a little easier to get an overtake done, especially with the help of Slipstream and the overtake feature. So this first back straight, this is one place where you can potentially get an overtake done. And then after this area, which is called Spoon, another overtake opportunity will be presented at this back straight. The penalty serving zone is also located here. This is the only penalty serving zone, so if you have a penalty to serve, you'll be serving it there. But anyways, so the back straight leading up to this turn, another place to get the overtake done, and this is the last place to get the overtake done, leading up to the final chicane. But anyways, that is all for this guide. Apologies for putting this video out so late since I've been pretty busy over here lately, so I haven't had much time to get these guides out on time. But anyways, that's all from me. I'm going to sign off now. So this is Mr. CA. Wish you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.